Hello, this is Lisa Russick
And Misty Lower.
with the podcast We're All Psychic. And today we have some really great guests that I just met, I don't know how long ago. It's just time just keeps going and going and going. And their names are Leslie and Stephen Shaw. Would you guys like to say hello?
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
We are glad you are here. We have a question for both of you. Misty, would you like to ask Leslie and I'll ask Stephen?
Sure.
You go first.
Leslie, do you think that we're all psychic?
I do.
And Stephen, do you think we're all psychic?
I think we're all psychic to different degrees, and I think that it's a gift that we have as human beings that a lot of times is kind of latent or has atrophied or has never been really explored. And certain people and certain family lines have more of a proclivity towards it. But I do think that is something that is definitely in the human genome and in our brains for sure.
Yes.
And you too, Leslie? You got pretty much the same kind of take on it? Yeah.
Yes, I've had a couple psychic experiences, and Steve's had thousands. His family is very psychic.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So, you say, right before the podcast, you're very psychic. It is weird. Did they work on it to get more experience and better at it, Stephen? Or were they naturally just blowing up light bulbs and stuff?
Well, my lineage goes back to Germany, England, and Scotland. And my great grandparents were the Newmans, and they were quite into spiritualism and automatic writing, and they were in probably the Blavatsky time period.
Oh.
So Madame Blavatsky and all that.
Well,
my mom, yes, my mom's mother would automatic write in two different languages, one that she didn't even know. My mom automatic wrote quite a bit when I was young. She was contacted by our family spirit guide that came to be known as O'Glegley, that many different people of the family and even outside the family had met at different times in their life. And she, as an example, she picked me up from school when I was 9 years old from elementary school, and she was crying. And I said, "Mommy, what's wrong?" And she said, "My mom just died." Her mother was living in Oldham, England. Okay. We were living in Woodland Hills, California, and we hadn't gotten the phone call. And I said, well, did you get a phone call? Says, "No, I automatic wrote, and I was told that, that she died, and I saw it." And yeah, a couple of days later, we got a call from England saying, want to let you know that your mother has died. And same thing when her father died a few years later. And then when her Uncle Clifford, she was notified before anybody. Okay. It was just
who was notifying her when she was out?
It was a thing. It was a thing that I grew up with.
So it was always there. It was never strange.
It was always there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So when she would write, did she have someone she was communicating with, or was it different every time? When she automatically
for her it was the same.
The same one you just spoke of?
One. Yes, but for my grandmother, it was different. It was like one in a different language, like Arabic.
Yeah.
And another one in English. I don't have any knowledge of my great grandparents, the Newmans, but I know that it's followed the family. This old Glegley character, which we have come to now know that is not a spirit guide, is more of an alien.
We think it's
aliens and listeners
on the family,
pretending to be a spirit guide.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listeners and watchers, this is a video podcast, and they are going to tell us their stories. They have had alien or extraterrestrial experiences. Mm-hmm. You have, especially, right, Stephen, all your life.
Oh, I can tell you things that have happened that have had multiple witnesses and with physical manifestation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that happened, especially when I was 18, when I was living with my father and my sister. I was approached by this being when I was 18 years old. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room in my work clothes from the day before, and I looked at my piano. It was about 5:30 in the morning. This was in January of 1979, so it was dark, and I thought about what piano piece I was going to work on that day, because I am a pianist and a keyboardist, and I play multiple instruments. And then I listened to the fountain in the other room, and I was too early to get up, so I was awake, in other words. And from behind me, from the front door, a being, blue-white, a being tall, 6 to 7 feet. It kind of it's almost like it noticed that I was awake, and it just floated and floated vertically over to me in about a second and a half, and it stopped by my right side. And immediately as it stopped by my right side, the whole right side of my body just became completely immobile. Not in a scary way, but I just had no physical control over it. And I was thinking,
that's what I was about to ask. What were you thinking?
Well, my first thought was, oh, this is O'Glegley. This is the family spirit guide that I heard about since being 3 years of age. But the other part of my brain was thinking, hey, dude, you can't move. Okay. All right. You're immobile. And so I was like half excited and half afraid. And it bent down to me and it whispered in my right ear, in a whisper that wasn't either feminine or male. So I couldn't tell. But I was still in that state of like, not panic, but I can't move. And I'm not sure how long that lasted, but I would guess 15 seconds to 30 seconds. And then it basically went out of the house. The whole room, by the way, when it walked over to me, was filled with blue, white, intense light.
Yes, it illuminated the whole room.
Living room was filled with blue, white light.
That's very interesting. I'll tell you why later.
and so I still can't remember to this day fully if I went and told my dad right away, because he'd been having weird things happen to him, and my sister, and we all had different things happening to us that particular week. So anyways, about 6 hours later, it was 11:30. I was getting ready. I was getting hungry. So I reached into my right hand pocket to pull out whatever coins and money I had. And I pulled out all the coins, and all the coins in my right hand side pocket were all magnetized. This is 6 hours later. I could pick up the coins with the coins. It didn't matter. My dad.
It didn't matter if there were different types of coins or anything. They all magnetized.
Nope, they're all just standard American coins.
And even the opposite sides would stick, like not like magnets.
I could pick them up. Didn't matter which way you tried it. And my dad was a cabinet maker trained in England. Very no nonsense guy. Grew up in wartime England. So did my mom as kids, and so he knew that wasn't possible. And so did I.
Coins are designed.
They're designed not to be met. And I've been looking. I've been looking for an answer to this very day how that's possible, and I have not found an answer. Have not found an answer.
Do you still have the coins?
No.
No, at the time, like I say,
we wish he kept them. But
we had so many things happening in a short period.
So that wasn't a big deal.
It was
another
like
thing.
It was the biggest of the deals,
yeah.
But it wasn't. It was like I say, when you grow up knowing that you have a family spirit guide and your mom gets contacted by beings that tell you that, things are going on before anybody else knows, and you don't share it with your friends. You don't share this type of stuff with your childhood friends.
Yeah.
They would think either that you have, emotional problems or you're lying.
I don't know. Maybe for females, it'd be different, because I could have told my female friends stuff like that. But
my sister didn't want anything to do with it. So she never talked about it.
Okay.
She's a ghost hunter in northern England now.
And now she and her husband are ghost hunters in northern
That's great.
England.
She did own it.
Yeah, she went from basically going, I don't have anything to do with this, to being full-on ghost hunter. So it's interesting how things turn around that way.
She's definitely a sensitive. The whole family would have these bizarre experiences and then immediately black out right after
frequently.
This is the signature of the alien abduction phenomenon, as we now know. And we weren't 100% sure what we were dealing with until Philip, which is Stephen's younger brother, he saw a gray alien in his room one time right before blacking out. And then we knew what we were dealing with.
At a completely different house that we were building ourselves up in the woods, 350 miles away.
Yeah, the phenomenon follows the family wherever they go. Rather like a haunting would be more lodged to a place, we think.
Right.
And whereas this is a phenomenon that follows the entire
family. It follows from Germany to England to Northern California to Southern California.
They do seem, I've known people who, through my life, I've met two people who have regular abductions, and they were both in the same family as a brother, sister, and another sister. One sister didn't have any experiences, but the other two did. It was a keyboardist in a band I was in. I'm also a musician. Oh. And her name is Libby, and her brother had the abduction experiences, but I think they had another sister who didn't. And then when she was older, she started having memories. So she did.
Right.
And Libby said it was always in the family, and they didn't talk about it until they were a little older. And then they were just like, what do we do about this? I don't know. Then we just
what do you do? Yeah.
You just don't talk about it, and you tell each other. That's what they ended up doing, is telling each other when stuff happened.
And get some therapy to deal with the trauma.
And interesting side note is that my Uncle Douglas, who just passed, he was at Griffiths. He wasn't part of the Shaw family, except that he was married to my mom's older sister. So when he was stationed in Ceylon just after World War II, because he was in the RAF, he was a pilot, and he was awakened in the middle of the night by this tall being. It was basically black. He said it looked like a tall black man in a fez, and it woke him up. Said, Douglas,
like the man in
said
black.
It in his head, said, you have to leave. You have to get up right now because there's a raid coming through and you're going to be killed. Okay. Wow. So he'd heard about Old Glegley from from my grandmother and from Marie, his wife, and from my mom. And he took him seriously. He got up, got out of the tent, and then sure enough, a raid came through and several people were killed. But there was no guy there. Okay. Yeah. There was no guy going around there just saying, hey, now you wake up. Hey, now you wake up.
Yeah.
It was just for him. This was like, again, like say you grow up in a family that has this type of stuff. You just accept it. I used to be awakened when I was 3 years old. I used to be awakened in my bed by this invisible being that would jump on my chest and my stomach kind of playfully. Boing, boing. It wasn't visible that I could see with my eyes, but it would play around with me sometimes, Did you kind of get a mental image of it kind of I got a mental image of like a small, almost like a, how do you call it? Like a dwarf, not like a dwarf,
gnome?
A gnome, kind of like a gnome.
Oh, interesting.
My brother, for about 2 years when he was young, he was sleeping in the closet, and we had a bunk bed. I would sleep on the top and he'd sleep on the bottom. But for 2 years, he said, well, I sleep in the closet because I'm afraid of the little men that come in the night. Okay. This is what he told me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. And said, okay, I just took it like maybe he was just having bad dreams or something like that. But when I was 9 years old, I was awakened by this strange sound that I didn't recognize. First, I thought it might have been the dog that we had, but it definitely was not the dog. And I got out of the bunk bed and I started walking down the hallway, and my heart was pounding. And the sound was so unusual that I was frightened. So I was in adrenal mode. Mode, you're not asleep. Okay. You're awake. Okay. Your heart's pounding. Your adrenals are going. So just as I'm ready to turn around the corner to go into the living room, everything just goes black. Okay. I just don't remember. And then a couple hours later, I'm back in my bunk bed. Somehow I'm back there. I'm just sleeping very calmly, but I'm back in my bunk bed. Again,
a few hours later.
No explanation, no whatsoever.
That's the same stuff
memory.
That she said, my friend Libby said that happened to her and her brother, mm-hmm. and then later her sister. They had
we've tried to.
They see the face. Usually they see the face through a window sometimes before they
Sometimes they see a face first.
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes she said she'd just see the faces like at random places. She'd be like in a bathroom at a restaurant and there's a window and then she'd just see one watching her, stuff like that. Mm.
So Stephen, do you remember anything?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Tell you that we've tried to break through with hypnotic regression.
Do I remember anything as far as like being on a table somewhere?
The missing time.
Yeah. We don't know what happened in the missing time, except that we think that we know because of what's happened to so many others.
One very odd thing that happened during this time frame, actually was the day before I had the coin incident. I was sleeping in my regular bedroom, and I was awakened by this whirring sound, like a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound in the air. And I rolled over onto my right side to kind of look outside my room, and I could tell that there was nothing there. I thought it was a bug or something like that, like something that was flying around. Yeah. So I went back to sleep, rolled on my left-hand side, and then from the base of the bed, there were two distinct pushes, like a shove, shove. And growing up in Southern California, you think, oh, it's just an earthquake, something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to make it logical. So then tried to go back to sleep again, and then it pushed harder again, too. And then it pushed harder a third time. By this time, I'm getting worried, okay? And then I get three distinct taps on my right shoulder, just like somebody or something with an index finger, went tap, tap, tap right on my deltoid muscle. Now this time I'm saying, I've got to look, but I'm angry, but I'm also scared. So I whirled around and I said, what? And then,
but there was nothing.
And then there's nothing there. And then I lose time again.
Blacks out again.
And I just,
before you lose time and black out, are you afraid? What do you feel? Do you remember? Are you afraid? Are you peaceful?
I felt a combination of angry and afraid.
Because maybe you knew they'd take over. You knew it was happening.
Yeah. And the next night was the thing with the coins. And the following night, my dad was awakened in the middle of the night, and his bedroom was separated by a hallway from my bedroom. And I usually slept with my bedroom door open. So anyway, he was awakened by this intense blue-white light that was outside of my bedroom door. It basically covered the whole bedroom door. And he was going to get up to look. And then he had a voice in his head say, Jeffrey, everything's fine. Go back to sleep. Nothing to worry about. And that's exactly what he did. But he did tell me about it in the morning at breakfast. And that was kind of the end of those events. We had other things happen before that.
And Philip, one time he heard it. What he thought was a cat. He was laying in bed and he heard what he thought was a cat down on the floor. And he reached down to pet the cat. And instead, a hand grabbed his arm, and he blacked out immediately. And we tried to break through the barrier of Steve's mind with hypnotic regression, but the blocks are so firmly in place that we have yet to succeed with it.
So yes. I do have a question. You had mentioned something about the spirit guide maybe not being what you thought it was.
Yes.
What was it? Do you know now?
We think it's gray aliens.
Gray? Now, listeners and watchers, I'd like to explain what a gray alien is from what we know of. We have talked about gray aliens on the podcast. Mm-hmm. If you want to go back to the podcast I did called The Galactic Beings and something, I'd say it's an old podcast, but it's one of the first video podcasts I did, listeners. It talks about the grays, and what I understand is they are psychic kind of surgeons.
Yes, they have.
They are just drones. They just do their job. They just kind of do their job. They're not like they're just told what to do. So, listeners, that's my association. Is that what you guys kind of get with the grays?
That's pretty.
And
close.
They have the heads like the one behind her, and like my little starries. They look like the big forehead with the guy.
And they come in different sizes and heights too. They're not just they're
not always gray either. Are they sometimes green or like there are those like
or bluish
colors or blue?
Sometimes they have pebbly skin. Sometimes smooth. The tall, spindly ones are supposed to be slightly yellower in color.
Okay.
But we think a lot of times it might be the lights on the ship that are making them appear various colors.
Well, I can tell you that the one that immobilized me was tall and blue-white for sure, and
electric somehow.
And spoke into my ear.
Yeah.
And immobilized me, and it was. I think there's also a bit, a lot of it has to do with just how open and receptive a person is.
I think so.
I came from a psychic family from both sides. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was a musician. I was studying Tai Chi. I was studying Paramahansa Yogananda's work. I was very pure and chaste. I was working out every day of my life, as a cabinet maker. And, so I think part of it has to do with the receptivity and maybe your auric field and your chi field as far as being more open. If your brain is tuned, like for instance, musicians tend to not get Alzheimer's, and especially professional musicians don't get dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Yes.
They also, if they do get it, they can like play the piano and not skip a beat.
Correct.
Like, they cannot remember their name or anything, but they get on the piano and they can play
or whatever instrument. Yeah.
They can still play. Huh? Wow. I didn't know that.
That's neat.
So when, Stephen, when I was married to Stephen, I was hearing, of course, about all these experiences. And I was a dutiful wife. I believed him as much as I could without personally
95%.
Seeing anything. But then in 2005, I saw my first UFO. And it was just a bright white light up. Yeah. It was just a bright white light up in the sky, which could have been 1,000 different things, maybe. But then it took off at what had to be 20,000 miles an hour, if I were going to guess. and it was just poosh over the northern horizon and gone in less than a quarter of a second,
Yeah.
And it was after that we started seriously researching for the book. And
the book.
Yeah.
Let listeners and watchers know about your book. What's it called?
It's Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw. There it is.
Who are they and what are they up to? We want to know.
Who they are, yeah.
They are, yeah. When we first started researching, we noticed right away that UFO theories and UFO facts were not in alignment. For instance, the UFO theory at the time was that the reason they're abducting people is they're just interested in us scientifically. They just want a sampling of a cross section of humanity for their scientific research. But that's not what we found was happening. What we found was happening is that they find a genetic strain that they like, and they will take that person again and again and again through their lives. Yes. And then they'll start taking their children and their grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And so it tends to be.
What do you mean by they like? Do you know what that means? When they like a certain genetic sequence or something?
Yes, it's definitely in our book how we address that. We go chapter by chapter.
I'm getting that book. Yeah.
As far as we can tell, just to give a slight hint, is that the aliens are more that we call aliens are more like our cousins. Okay. That's one of the reasons why they like to breed with us, why they are capable of breeding with us, and also they're interested in our cattle mutilations. It's not that they're they're flying from Alpha Centauri 10,000 times a year.
Right.
It's more there's more invested. They have more skin in the game. Okay. The Earth is.
What is their skin in the game? What is important?
Well,
water.
We think that they are they're cousins. As Steve was saying. To our race, and we believe they separated from us 13,000 years ago.
Yes.
When we discovered the evidence about the Hiawatha asteroid impact, that was discovered under northern Greenland's ice sheet in 2016. They discovered this crater that we knew existed because 13,000 years ago, there was an extinction event in Northern America. The mammoth, the mastodon, the saber-toothed cat, the dire wolf, the stilt bear,
the Clovis
people, and the American camel and the American horse, they were all wiped out at the same time. And then nanodiamonds were discovered in the soil of 13,000 years ago. And nanodiamonds form in no other way than celestial impact. As a meteor is coming through the atmosphere, the dust it brings with it superheats. And it forms the dust forms into these tiny little round diamonds called nanodiamonds. Mm-hmm. And there was a high concentration of them discovered in the very north of North American soil, Northeast America. And so we surmised that the meteor or asteroid impact crater must be under the ice sheet. And sure enough, it was. Mm-hmm. And it was discovered under the Hiawatha glacier in northern Greenland. And we believe this is the cause of all the 1,200 separate flood myths that are in the cultures of all people all around the world, pointing to a shared event that was a catastrophe for the entire world. And we also know from the shrinking of the genetic human genome.
Yeah, the bottleneck.
The bottleneck. We used to be a very diverse race, and then at one point in time, we were reduced to about 10,000 individuals, and the entire population of the planet has stemmed from those 10,000 people.
Has regenerated. We basically said,
right.
Yeah.
And so we're not very diverse anymore.
Yeah, this bottleneck occurred 13,000 years ago. So in other words, I jokingly say, we had the dead body. We just had to find the murder weapon, as far as and
who did it?
Hiawatha.
Maybe not the weapon, but who was holding it?
Exactly. Yeah. So we know for a fact now that there was a meteor impact that happened 13,000 years ago. But the nanodiamonds have been found on 4 different continents in the northern hemisphere in 10 different countries so far. So
we knew that it was somewhere in that region, and sure enough, that's where it was discovered. And so that cemented the proof for our theories. We believe that the human race at that time was more advanced than we think. We think that they were fairly technological people. and that they are the ones that built they had a space program, and they built bases on Mars and on the moon and on Phobos. That's what these structures are on these planets. Because
the giveaway is like in every one of these 1,200 different myths, in every single one of them, there was foreknowledge and forewarning.
Right. God came and warned us.
Every single one.
Yeah, that to build a boat or go to high ground.
Now, it could have been 2-year forewarning. It could have been a year and a half, but there was forewarning.
Yes.
Enough for them to build Kuyu in the Anatolian Plain and in Turkey, or to build arcs, or to go higher ground. Yeah. So so in other words, we were.
Who warned them? But aliens or spirits, guys.
Well,
we've had spirit guides around forever, as long as we.
Right.
That prior to Hiawatha, there was a fairly advanced pyramid building culture all over the planet, and that's why there's so many ancient pyramid structures.
And all around the same time, they all
about the same time, that all look very similar to each other.
Yeah.
And we think that at this point, the human species separated into two. The ones that kept their technology and their knowledge and are therefore at least 13,000 years ahead of our technology. And then the poor schmucks that were left on the surface to die in droves and get thrown back into the Stone Age to start all over again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we don't think they're coming from distant star systems. No, we think they're coming from
they've been around
bases inside our solar system.
Yeah. So what do you think about the idea that some extraterrestrials can travel interdimensionally? I kind of
believe that they're doing that.
They're doing that. A lot of them.
We certainly know that they can manipulate matter, and they can literally go through doorways. We call them portals and things like that. I mean, if they're 13,000 years ahead of us, we're messing around with CRISPR technology right now, where we can manipulate, the human genome. And so,
they made. Did you hear that we made a chromosome out of nothing? It was a yeast chromosome. People have done that. We have made a chromosome.
That's a big advance.
That's insane. That makes me happy. I mean, I think it's great. I like technology, though. If people do it, So Misty had a question. She has a question, and she said it a little while ago. So what do they want?
Sorry.
What do they want?
Oh, no.
You had said that, Misty. What do they want? I'm curious.
Yeah,
let her ask her.
I thought, that was it.
That was it. I was repeating it for her. What do they want? And from
the reason they're abducting people, we believe, and that's another bizarre thing about the abduction phenomenon, is that it's almost entirely a Caucasian phenomenon.
It's very high percentage.
About 95% of the people taken are Caucasian.
That's what we hear stories about anyway.
Yeah.
That we hear
think
about.
That the race of people that happen to be abducting people just happen to be a split off from the Caucasian race. And that's why they're after so much Caucasian DNA. And if they find a particular strain that's very similar to their own, and then they'll prey on that strain.
How does prey on it? What is preying on it exactly?
Well, I mean, they'll take people and take their genetic material. We think they're taking eggs, sperm, and blood.
Oh, yeah. I would most 100% agree with you on that. And I've also, I've done a lot of research on it too, and I've seen a lot of different things. But I've seen, shows where women are on there saying that they have actually been impregnated with, an alien.
And then like 6 weeks later,
baby away.
It's gone. Yeah.
It's about 4 months that they usually get the person again.
They have like a miscarriage or whatever, and it's gone.
Yes.
But yet they still have proof that they actually gave birth. They're bleeding and all.
Yeah, and they did have, if they had things in there.
No baby.
Yes, ultrasound frequently proves that the pregnancy was real.
Right.
But then they're taken again, and the fetus is stolen at roughly about 4 months is what we've found.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jacobs, Professor Jacobs, rather, David M. Jacobs. He was a college professor at Temple University, teaching a class in UFOs for about 25 years. He did 10,000 hypnotic regressions of abductees in his work for his long career. And he found that of those 10,000, about 1,100 people were the women that had this exact same phenomenon again and again and again, described almost always the same. They're taken, impregnated. 4 months later, they're taken again. The baby is taken. And then 7 years later, they're taken, and sometimes introduced to their own offspring.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
And sometimes they remember it and sometimes they don't.
Right. Sometimes not, but we hear about it fairly frequently.
Yeah.
And we think
I've heard the same story.
Yeah, again and again. And it's the same story again and again.
So, I have a question. You had said that, we narrowed down to 10,000. Is this race that is doing this to us? I mean, I don't know if it's the Greys or someone telling them the Greys, but do they want to, did the same thing happen to them? Are they trying to broaden their genetic pool base, or are they just trying to use ours?
What we seem to have come across is that when they separated about 13,000 years ago, there's quite a possibility that we don't know how many thousand separated from us. Maybe some went into space. Probably a lot of them basically built cities underground, because they have the technology to do it. I mean, if you look at the megalithic structures, we know that they knew how to melt rock and to manipulate rock. In fact, even at places like Sacsayhuaman and especially Pumapunku, if you turn those huge blocks over, they're metal cleats that were used, that were melted. These cleats were melted to hold these stones together. Means they had to have a smelting factory and a blast furnace there to be able to do this. And all these blocks, I've done a lot of concrete work in my life, having been in the military in the Seabees for 6 years and being a builder. And I can tell you that these H blocks that exist at 12,500 foot elevation, these H blocks look exactly like poured concrete blocks. They were exactly uniform in texture.
They're identical,
absolutely identical.
I do have a theory now, Stephen. You might like this because I have thought about this a lot, and I do believe that the old, let's say there were people 13,000 years ago and beyond. I really think they had a sound system, not a sound system, like boom, 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 but like they didn't have an electrical system.
Right.
They used sound as their power system.
Right.
And so we don't know what maybe it wasn't a furnace. Maybe it was like a horn or, like some kind of musical, like, I don't know if we'd be like an instrument.
In fact, like the hypogeum and certain places like Stonehenge, they've done archaeoacoustics. Yeah. And what you'll find out too, and myself as being a musician and playing around with stuff like 30 some odd years ago, there was like this device you get called Supermind, where you basically have the light glasses you'd put on and you put on the headphones, and it would slow your brain waves down to between 7 and 14 cycles per second, basically put you into what they call 110 hertz cycle, which is what they call entrainment. And entrainment is basically like a repeating pattern would basically put people into a trance. And it would basically be transformative as far as what they're able to receive and to be able to do. And so it's a very legitimate musical experience that people can be put into. And a lot of these, if you look at them all around the world, you see this commonality.
Yeah, the hypogeum resonates at 110.
And on top of that, you'll also find references in the Bible and different texts where blocks are moved by the sound of a horn, or basically using different sound.
And if you look at the Egyptian glyphs, there's rows of people with these long horns. They don't show them building the pyramids. What are they doing?
Right.
What are they doing with those? What are those? So common.
Pyramids, I mean, how they built the pyramids.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have like books and statues of people putting up a telephone pole. Or wires for our sound, for our electricity system, so why would they document if they did use a sound system? It's just they didn't expect for everything to, if it were that way, I would guess. But
we think that they have the ability to negate matter temporarily, to pass through walls, to cancel out matter just temporarily.
And that's that blue-white light. I think, because I have had experiences with beings, human, whatever they are, and they're always that blue-white color, spirits even sometimes, but they're not dead. There's something, these are not dead. They're astral projecting, but they're always that bluish white light, and they can stand through objects.
I can tell you something. An absolute fact that happened to me when I was 22, and I'll go into it. I don't usually go into it, but it sounds like a program I can go into this. Okay. I was in my second year of the military. I was highly into practicing Tai Chi on a daily basis. I was also studying Paramahansa Yogananda's work, Autobiography of a Yogi, and that kind of thing. And this happened at the house my parents and I were building up in Sonora, California. At that time, in my life, I was sleeping on the floor because it felt more comfortable to me. And this was December 26th, 1982. And I was reading one of Paramahansa's books called Metaphysical Meditations. It was his Christmas meditation. And I just read it like around 11:30 at night, put the book down, went to sleep, put a cover on me, woke up about 4:45 in the morning. I know it was 4:45 because I looked at the VCR clock and it said 4:45. And my body felt like it was kind of like glued to the floor, not sleep paralysis because I was awake and I wasn't in any type of like fear type thing. And for some reason, I thought about God's love. Now the Zen talk about having, one pure thought with nothing else encumbering you. To have one pure thought is like grasp the universe. So I had this thought about God's love with nothing else in my mind. And I remember feeling it in my brain and thinking it in my heart. Is like, the Chinese talk about you're supposed to think with your heart and feel with your brain, okay? Which is the yin and yang thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I smiled, right? I remember smiling, and both the energies came together. And from like 1 billion miles away, this is absolute truth. From 1 billion miles away, there's inverted pyramid of blue-white light, inverted, came and hit me right in my third eye, and my whole body was encased in this cocoon of blue-white light.
Yeah.
And in that instant, I said, now I know why the holy men and the Sufis and whatnot, the Tibetans will sit for 8 to 10 hours a day, cross-legged with smiles on their face, because they're channeling the stuff I've been reading about, what Paramahansa was talking about. And I knew that it was the simplest thing, but the hardest thing to do. And I did it just by accident. The funny thing is that about 6 months later, I was going on a job site with my dad, doing some cabinet making, and I was thumbing through the back of a Psychology Today magazine, just as some of their ads. And one of their ads was showing a man laying on a stone tablet, face up, with an inverted pyramid of multicolored light hitting him in his head, and his body being encased in a cocoon of energy. And it said, you can obtain enlightenment via the Rosicrucians. I never became a Rosicrucian, by the way, but I showed my dad, because I told my dad about what happened. And I said, this happened to me. And it was like, you know what? The teachings they tell you, like in Tai Chi energy is real. Yes. I absolutely know it.
Chi, I had a spirit teach me what Chi is, and it's amazing.
I know exactly what it is. And also these teachings about these energies, it's true. I mean,
it is
the Zen, the one pure thought, and it's like, it's being broadcast all the time, but we just almost never tune into it. And that's the thing where it crosses over with these entities. They're obviously, I think they're higher vibrational than we are, and they know more than we do. And where it crosses, I'm not sure, but I can tell you that these things are real.
Yeah, okay? I believe you. I think they are real. Too. I have guides that come through and I can see them. Those extraterrestrial guides. They don't say anything. They're just around. So
do you think that they actually die like humans die?
Yes, except we think that they're longer lived than we are. There's a lot of, I don't know about evidence, but old stories about how the manna of the gods, if they drink this stuff, that they're able to live longer. And we think that may literally be true, where for instance, the human beings used to live 1,000 years. We know the stories of Enoch and Methuselah and
the Bible. If they begot somebody, and then 800 years later, another person's begotten. Yeah. Right. So how does that happen?
We believe that they were a longer lived race just because they had access to the technology of living longer somehow with either this beverage or this food that they would consume to be able to
Or it could be genetic engineering in some way that they figured out.
That as well.
Correct. That's what I think it was. I
Nordic
believe
aliens,
that we even created like our ancient roots back way back. I think it goes back farther than we're talking. I think you guys do too. I believe that we created some of the animals that are alive on our planet, right?
Yes.
I've been given that information, and I don't know if it's true, but it was given to me in like a download, and I was like, oh.
Remember when I said prior to the humans, Homo sapiens sapien, we've been on this planet for at least 120,000 years. And modern day archaeology would have us believe that we sat around for 107,000 years without making any progress at all.
People
not even
get bored.
The house.
I know, right?
Exactly.
People get bored. We do stuff. We do stuff.
And that doesn't sound like our race, right?
No.
Our race is a very industrious, curious people, right?
Curious, industrious, restless, we're all those things.
So we think that we became fairly technically advanced, but Hiawatha just scraped the evidence off the surface of the world. People have no idea how devastating this thing was. It would have caused 2,000-foot high tsunamis rushing towards every coast in the world.
And all the religions have that flood story. All the histories have a flood story.
There's 1,200 separate
so far
cultures have ancient flood myth.
And how many?
In their most ancient.
And how many gigatons of ice were evaporated?
Yes, it would have instantly vaporized 1,500 gigatons of ice and thrown it all up into the sky as water vapor.
Yeah.
And the 40 days and 40 nights of rain, the Noah story, you can add a 0 to that. It would have been 400 days and 400 nights of rain. A single gigaton is 100 billion tons. No, I'm sorry, a single billion tons, but there's 1,500 of those were suddenly vaporized. Wow. And we think that's why the mammoths were flash frozen so quickly in Siberia, because the ice.
That's real weird. They still have their food in their stomach, and their
bleach bombs would have hit them so fast they would have flash frozen. And the most bizarre thing about that is the fruit trees were frozen with fruit on them. And if anyone knows anything about fruit trees, when they're exposed to an early frost, the fruit trees will drop the fruit off of them to save the tree.
Save the mother plant.
It does that to survive the frost. It abandons its own crop. But the fruit was actually frozen on the trees, and so we believe it was a flash freezing. And that would Hiawatha once again would have done exactly that.
It accounts for the facts. The facts are we can find these things, and it fits the facts.
People, things can't survive that we've made anyway. I don't think anything that we have made can survive 13,000 years.
No, not even Hoover Dam.
Yeah, not even the Hoover Dam. I agree.
Except maybe some of these megalithic structures that nobody can explain.
Yeah, and jewelry.
The average lifespan of concrete is only a couple hundred years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So but the Romans, interestingly, they had a different formula for concrete, and the thing they used differently, they used the ash from one of the volcanoes instead of using sand as part of the aggregate. So when they used that, plus they used pig's blood and a couple other things, their formula for concrete has held up much better than what we're making these days. So that's another interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yes, very interesting.
The Nordic aliens are described as being indistinguishable from human beings. And Valiant Thor, who visited the Pentagon, did you hear about that guy who lands a spaceship in Virginia and demands to be taken to the Pentagon?
In the 50s.
I have heard it. Tell it. Listeners might not know it.
This guy lands a spaceship in a Virginia field and asks to be taken to your leader, so to speak. And he ends up staying as an advisor to the Pentagon and the White House for 3 years. And there's a book about it called Stranger at the White House, I believe. And but Valiant Thor is a Caucasian red-haired man. That's
dark red-haired.
And he claimed to be from Venus, but now we know for a fact that Venus is uninhabitable. So he was lying. And we think that they are living here, sharing our planet with us under our feet, launching their spaceships from underground bases. And we hear it all the time. They come out of lakes, out of oceans, out of mountains, out of volcanoes, out of the side of ridges, out of the sides of mesas. A hole opens up in the side of the mountain or the mesa, and UFOs fly in and out of it.
Oh, wow.
I've heard that.
They're launching from
when I lived in
here.
Arizona.
Yeah, the Modoc people up here in Shasta and the Hopis, they have stories going back thousands of years about the Star Brothers and the Star Ancestors, or the Ant people.
And they're related, if I remember my reading correctly. They're related to the Star people.
And they have a totally different viewpoint on things than we have. They don't fear them. They don't fear them in the same way that most people do.
Well, they're benefactors to the people that they wanted to save, right? They taught them how to stay underground. They taught them how to grow a bean, I believe, or some sort of a bean under the ground, in the dark. They actually were able to teach them how to grow food. That's another one of the flood myths is the Hopis. And they say the Star Brothers came and warned them and put them underground and to save the people. And like I say, they taught them how to grow underground food. So I
wonder, way back then when this happened, if extraterrestrials were coming and warning some people, and 10,000 people, let's say, make it, why didn't the rest of the people listen?
Well, I think what they did is they
couldn't do it.
You remember the movie Deep Impact?
I love Deep Impact. Yeah, Daddy.
Right. So we think
gonna make me cry all over again.
We think that exact scenario happened. They saw an asteroid coming. Oh God, it's going to kill us all. Let's build underground arcs and take the smartest of our people down below and take down our technology and our knowledge and a bunch of animals and survive the cataclysm down there. And good luck, people on the surface. Go to high ground. You might survive.
That's what's weird. I guess that's why perhaps extraterrestrials would come to people who weren't being helped.
Mm-hmm. And we think they came back out to help us later.
Yeah.
Most of these flood stories have the same ending where we survived the flood, but we became cannibals and barbarians again. And then God showed up on a floating platform and landed and taught us how to be civilized again and how to do math and archaeology and grow crops.
Animal husbandry.
That sounds like an alien.
It sounds like, I think.
The Veracochas.
Yeah, we think they used to play God because they could.
We may have just thought they were gods.
Right, but they used to play God to help, control us, right?
Oh, yeah.
But now we think that we're too sophisticated for that story to work anymore. Now we think they're playing space alien.
Yes.
Or distant aliens, they are extraterrestrial in that they are around our solar system.
So what do they want from us?
Yeah, good question.
We think they probably want to either reintegrate with us or possibly, what was the other thing, Leslie?
Well, either they want to reintegrate with us or infiltrate us, our society. You see, in the 40s, when we started using nuclear weapons, they became quite alarmed. They started following all our military everywhere we went. They started, UFOs were spotted at every nuclear test. There was actually a nuclear missile test where a UFO shot it out of the sky. They went to the Malmstrom base and shut down all our nuclear weapons one after another.
That was in Montana in the 60s.
You see, they are very alarmed at our nuclear arsenal.
They don't want us.
I think it's because they're living here
ourselves.
too. They
want to destroy ourselves, and maybe our planet.
The world,
That's
maybe
why I was saying earlier. That's why I was saying earlier. That's why they have a lot of skin in the game.
Exactly, because they live here too. And so.
Yeah. That makes
sense.
So
they didn't get what they wanted. They supposedly met with Eisenhower, and they didn't get the denuclearization that they wanted. And so we think now they've got this breeding program to try and reintegrate with us and possibly infiltrate us so that they can eventually get what they want, is denuclearization and us backing off from the brink of destroying the entire planet.
Are you ladies?
I agree 100% of what you're saying. I really do.
It's more sense, right? That's why they're seen 10,000 times a year instead of,
and the government says they exist
more than it ever was. I mean, now it's happening, for instance, the government's now admitting that, some of this stuff really did happen. Or, the information is out there.
It's so weird.
Yeah, because of the Freedom of Information Act, they can't. If, for instance, there was this really good documentary done about these school children from 4th to 6th grade, school children in Zimbabwe that happened, I believe it was in the early 80s. And there was this spacecraft that landed, and these children were attracted to these beings that came out of the spacecraft. They looked like little grays, and they communicated telepathically. And all the kids swore that this happened. They told the teacher, And there was no lie to detectives that these creatures, these beings were saying, basically, we don't like how you're taking care of the planet. You need to take care of the planet better, that the planet is dying. And they communicated telepathically, and all the kids and they were interviewed separately, and they all got together like 20 years after the event. And they said, yeah, it made changes in their lives, what fields they went to, marine biologists, environmental science, that kind of thing. But these beings came down there, and it was, it's again, younger minds are just easier to get through to because there's less judgment for one thing.
Oh yeah,
less
they're more
pollution.
open.
More open. Yeah. Absolutely.
Not as afraid. Don't have a reason.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what it is.
And we think we know where they're taking the fetuses that
That's
they
what I was going to ask you. What are they doing with them?
Well, we only have one piece of evidence on that, and they're called the Dulce papers. The Dulce Air Force Base is what ufologists call this underground base. That's a joint joint alien military base. It's underground. It's 7 levels deep, and the top 5 levels are human only, but the bottom 2 levels are
joint.
The joint part of the base where there are aliens. And there's the Phil Schneider evidence where he and a bunch of people that were not in the know, like military, they broke down a wall, and on the other side of the wall was the gray aliens, and there was a firefight, and 66 men were killed. That was
what about the gray aliens? Did they make it, or did they die?
It was the gray aliens and reptilians.
Did any of them die? Do we have any of their bodies from that?
I presume that we do.
Okay.
But
yeah, it would make sense.
But then the Dulce papers were a different source. A security guard one night went down to the lower 2 levels where he wasn't supposed to go, and he discovered about 300 of these vats, and in these vats were developing hybrid aliens and gray aliens. So we think what they do is they take the fetuses at 4 months old, and then they install them in these vats to continue the development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I just wonder what they get out of it. Wonder what their advantage is. We don't know yet. Do you have any ideas, or do you know?
Well, you hear about
in the book.
Star children being born, and how human beings are literally becoming more open and aware at an earlier age. In fact, I saw about 2 months ago, I saw this video, completely non-fake at all, of this 18-month-old white child, a male, that was sitting at a piano and was playing a simplified version of Clair de Lune by Debussy. Okay. With perfect technique, with perfect, sitting up perfectly straight. And, it's just like, this is becoming so much more common. And people are literally being born with bigger eyes, with smaller teeth, smaller chins. We're moving more away from being a hunter-gatherer as far as our teeth and even our jaws, because we don't have to do that. We're eating grains. And so you see changes are happening physiologically. Also to the neocortex, which is the latest part of the brain in the Homo sapiens sapien. That is something that separates us from everything else. I mean, that gives us part of the ability to have speech, to be able to have higher thinking. It's just an amazing thing. It's all happened in a very short period of time.
Yes,
a lot of it's occurred within only the past 300,000 years.
And they've done some genetic testing of humans about 3,000 years ago, and we've shown a 7% change in our DNA since then, which is incredibly quick.
That's a lot.
That's like 50,000 years worth of change.
Yeah, it's
so we think they're slowly turning us to be more like they are, and they're changing themselves to be more like we are. And either we can assume that they're infiltrating us by that assumption, or that they're possibly hoping to eventually introduce themselves to us and reintegrate with us without us going into an incredible panic and
killing them all.
That they would have it came out now.
The world's religions would be. There's so many people that would just say, no way, this isn't true. This is fake.
It'd be a big deal. It's going to have to do slowly. It's going to slowly come along like they're doing now, like they've been doing.
Yeah, they're doing it.
It's been doing it that way. So where can the listeners find your book and find websites about you, find out more? Get the book.
It's again Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw. We are on both Amazon and Ingram, and it's in paperback and ebook form, Kindle form as well. Yes. And we also have an Instagram page where we're trying to get people to give us their experiences and post, experiences that have come to us. So
the listeners,
if you have any listeners that would like to share experiences with us, we'd love to hear them.
Some reels. We posted some reels.
Let me tell them the address. Okay. It's the same handle for Facebook and Instagram. It's leslie.shaw.author. And I should have made it more about like our book name or something, but I stupidly didn't. But anyway, that's where they can find us on Instagram. And we also have a website where they can find excerpts and some of our blogs there. Okay. And also links to the podcasts we do are there as well. And that's at whotheyarebooks.com.
And listeners and watchers, I will put that in the description and you will be able to clicky through. And so I've just really enjoyed this podcast. You guys had so much information.
Yes.
Just so
very fun.
Very
Did
cool.
You have any other questions?
Yeah, Missy, you got any last minute questions?
I could talk to you all day about this.
Yeah, we could. Well, let me thank the sponsor real quick and we can continue.
Yeah.
I'd love to thank
back another time, maybe.
We love that.
Probably be a better idea.
We're very passionate about what we believe and what we've experienced. And I really feel frustrated sometimes that I can't really get across just how extraordinary human beings are. Mm-hmm. The potential that we have, especially when we're young.
Yes.
And I really, really wanted to try and get that across to people that, heck, everybody should learn a musical instrument. Everybody should learn a second language. just for your brain development alone. You just should do it, So I
totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that telepathy, the fact that they can telepathically communicate with us, we think this is actually a latent human ability.
Well, I think there's tons of telepaths out there.
That's atrophied in us surface people, but the people below never lost.
I don't think we've lost it. I think we just don't know how, or we're still doing it. We don't know we're doing it.
Kind of atrophied. It's mostly I
think we just don't. It's not apparent. It's not broken or disintegrated. I think it's just it's just the lost knowledge. People are doing it all the time. He's doing it right now. I know he's been doing it this whole time, and Misty has too. You and I are too busy
Leslie, going. The other day, Leslie was particularly stiff when she woke up in the morning, and she was thinking about this word that doesn't even really exist.
Yeah, I said, he said, "How do you feel?" And I said, I was about to say,
detorpify.
Yeah, I'm just trying to move and detorpify, but I didn't say it. I thought, is detorpify a word? And then he said, detorpify? He just pulled it straight out of my brain.
Right out of your head. That's just great. That's just great. I love it.
Yeah, I'm still having weird stuff happening to me to this very day. So
don't we all?
Hasn't changed.
We open that up. It just keeps
weirder and weirder and weirder to listen.
That's right.
And guests, as we've all heard and listened to. We've learned this in 6 seasons, and we are going to continue. So I think this might be our season 6 wrap up, listeners and watchers. And thank you so much for ending our season with us. And we'll have you back next season. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Everclear. Everclear is an advice app where you can get advice from psychics and empaths. So you can get the clarity you need to create the life you deserve. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. What's that?
Everclear.com.
Everclear.com. Or it's an app too. It's in the Play Store and Apple Store. I'm on there as an advisor named Lisa P. But I spell my name differently. Leesa. And Misty, thank you for this awesome podcast.
Thank you, Lisa.
And you guys, Leslie and Stephen, thank you so much. This is just great.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes,
listeners, watchers, we love you so much.
Everybody.
Thank you always for listening and watching. And we'll be back next season tomorrow or something.
Bye, Misty.
Bye.
Lisa.